Welcome back to The Pillars, the podcast of the 363rd ISR Wing. I'm Sergeant Joe, and today I'm here with Chaplain David. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, so we are going to talk about part 3 of our healthy relationships, and the topic is caring.
Caring.
Yeah. So what does caring mean to you, especially as a chaplain?
I think it's vital to the chaplaincy anyway to show caring. I think when people see the chaplain, they go, oh, there's the chaplain. He's got to care kind of thing. But there's so many pieces to caring, whether it be caring for someone, learning how to best care for someone, to understand their needs and to care, as well as taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And also being able to communicate how you want to be cared for.
Definitely. When you said like, oh, there's the chaplain, they care, it's almost like you're a mandatory carer, right?
Wow. Yeah,
like,
I
right?
never thought of it like that, but yeah, we are.
It's like this safe place where like, no matter who comes in, there's kind of this like blanket of, you're going to care about what I have to say, or you're going to care about me, or, you know, and so that can be comforting to a lot of people. But how do we get that in our other relationships? Like, how do you get that out of your spouse or significant other or, you know, children?
Right. No, I think that's a big question that I get a lot when it comes to when people sit down in front of me. They don't even know they're asking me that, but it's really about priorities, you know, and what they place as a priority. And oftentimes it's definitely a priority over caring. So get the mission done, get this done, get that done. And the caring idea of, and for me, I guess it kind of goes together with emotional intelligence, not understanding how someone else may need to be cared for in a different way. But I love the idea that when the chaplain comes in, like you said, they go, oh, it's the caring guy. He has to care. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
I hope that's what everybody thinks.
Well, and I know we use caring a lot in our military. We talk about caring for our airmen, right? And we use this statement as if it's like this understood, like we all know the definition of caring specifically, and that's not the case.
No.
Right? Like the way I care for my airmen may be completely different than the way that you would care for maybe your airmen. And that's the difference, because our airmen might communicate and feel like one of us doesn't actually care, even though we both feel we're caring for our airmen.
Right.
So I find that interesting that when we think about caring, we usually look at it in the ways that we think about caring. Right, we usually reflect it into like how I want to be cared for is how I will care for you. So if I like time off, I will try to give you time off. You may not want time off. You may want something else, you know.
Right, and
put in for an award.
Sounds very similar to the love languages,
definitely,
right? So
definitely.
This is the way I feel loved, so I'm going to show and demonstrate my love for you this way.
Yeah.
And then when the other person looks at you and says, wait a minute, that's not my love language. I want words of affirmation. You don't have to buy me stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, and for folks that don't like extra stuff, when you buy them a gift, it's like the worst thing you could do, right? You're like, that's like the opposite of caring. Because then they're like, what do I do with it? Like, what do you do with this thing now? You can't throw it away. You can't really give it away.
Right. And you're sitting there going, what? You're going to hurt my feelings. I did this because I'm showing you how much I love you. And they're going, yeah, you hate me. That's why you got me this.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some easy ways that we can care for folks that maybe doesn't require a whole lot of having to figure them out specifically?
I think investing time. Each person has needs, and try to figure out the best way. We talked about this just a second ago. What's the best way that this person wants to have their needs met to show that they're feeling appreciated and cared for, because the way I think may not be the way you think. And the only way to find that out, you could hit your head against the wall a lot of times trying to demonstrate how much you care for a person. But if that's not the way, it's not going to change. So spending time with someone and finding out, how do they appreciate being cared for?
Yeah, definitely. I love how you say spend that time. So often we feel like we don't have enough time, right? So we want like the fast way, right? How is the easiest way that I can care for you that's as least inconvenient as possible, right? Get the mission done and then still get you what you need. So one way that I know how to show that caring is that giving that space, right? That time, that dedication, that we can talk it out. If you want to talk, I can just take a listening role.
Right.
I can just be present, right? It doesn't matter if I have all the solutions that you're looking for or anything, but just creating that space for the person to feel comfortable, to know that we're going to address whatever concerns, And if they just need to vent, we vent, and then we both walk away, right? That's one of the easiest ways I know.
Yeah, and actually that ties in really well with one of my duties as a chaplain. So a lot of times what we have to do is be there with someone while they're grieving. And I've had a lot of folks ask me the question, well, what am I supposed to say? I'm not sure. I don't have the words to speak. I may say something dumb. And my response is just be there. Yeah. That shows that you care. You don't have to say anything. To them, you're just being there with them. It's a support. That's caring for them, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it definitely can tie into your personal relationships as well. I know a lot of times you get in these conversations where you want to vent, and then the other person is trying to solve your problems. And you really just need somebody to listen, right? So just be present, right? Like you're saying, just create a space, be there. Nobody has to have all the answers. And then another one that I love to do is I always like to tell people how much they matter to me, right? And so even the airmen that I can't get along with maybe a lot because we just continually have frustrations. He thinks I'm bossy or micromanaging, and I think he might be lazy, or right? But how do you still show caring when the report isn't where we want it? And I definitely make a point to always tell anybody in my life, like how much I appreciate them. Like, I appreciate you for this specific, right? I want them to know specifically that I noticed something, because it's so easy to just be like, oh, thank you, or like, oh, that was so nice of you. But it's so vague, it doesn't always have the impact that we're looking for.
Right. And I think right on the communications part, you may do something, and we talked a little bit about this before we started recording this morning, and that is a lot of cases you have marriages or relationships in which one person feels like by them working, by them bringing home the bacon or taking care of the house or whatever, that's their way of showing that they care. But if the other person doesn't see that as really caring or not the way they want to be cared for, it can cause problems and animosity where one person's saying, I'm doing all this for you. Don't you see how much I love you? And the other person's saying, I just want you to tell me.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I had a member where when I asked, like, who was having marital difficulties, and I asked, like, well, how do you, show affection? How do you know, like, how do you make sure that the other person knows you care? And he's like, well, I come home.
Wow.
And it's like, that might be missing the mark just a touch, right? Like, yes, you come home, that's nice, and I'm sure she appreciates that, but there's got to be a little more effort, right? We want to make sure that we're going beyond to tell the person that we care, right?
No, it reminds me, there was, I hate to say a joke, but something about two people got married, and one of the folks in the relationship said, you never tell me you love me, and the other one said, well, I told you I loved you, and when we got married, and if I changed my mind, I would have let you know.
Yeah, right.
It's not right.
There's no continual, like, affirmation. Yeah. And some people need that. Some people need it daily. Some people need it more. Some people need it less.
But conversely, I would also say speaking kind words and letting folks know how much they appreciate it, it's very good. But also, I think this is one thing that we don't like to talk about a lot when it comes to caring, but sometimes we need to speak truth in love. And so by not saying something to someone when they're not doing what they should or they're doing things they shouldn't, that's not doing them a service.
Yeah.
You show you care by telling them, hey, I care about you, so you're going down the wrong road, or I would do this differently, that kind of thing. And not necessarily trying to fix all the problems, but if you legitimately care for someone and you see them going down a road that's not the right road, that's going to end up in a bad place.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. On a very, very shallow version of that, if somebody has something in their teeth, you have to tell them that they have something in their teeth, right?
Do I have something?
No, you don't have anything in your teeth. But that's just a form of caring, right? Like, I noticed, and I don't want you walking around the rest of the day with a piece of lettuce on your tooth, right, or something. And just taking that moment of just like, hey, you got something on your tooth. They'll appreciate it, right?
Right.
I have been so many times, especially when I had braces, nobody would tell me I had anything in my teeth, and I would get home and I would be so mad, and I'd come back the next day and I'd be like, why didn't you say anything? And they're like, well, Sergeant, you always have something in your teeth.
Right.
Like, oh my God.
That's messed up.
I'm like, I have braces.
Show me you care.
Right. And so another way is to do small acts of kindness, right? Which could be telling somebody they have something in their teeth, right?
Sure.
But even beyond that, I know small acts of kindness for me. I know my children, they try to help me with the chores, right?
Yeah.
Or they ask me, like, Mom, what can I do? And so those are small things. Like, I know I always go above and beyond, like, hey, I'm going over to get coffee. Do you want some? Or do you want something else? I can hit 2 places, right? Small acts.
Right, and I think this actually bleeds over well into the work environment too. So I would say for our squadron commanders, wingman, anybody that has folks that report to you, just that simple question, what can I do for you? How can I help you? What's a way in which I can make your life easier? That's showing that you care about that person. Even if it's a small thing, hey, you want me to pick you up a Gatorade or whatever, I'm going out to the range and I need to go to the store.
Yep.
So little small things.
Yeah, there were several times where at my last assignment, I mean, it would just get so crazy that anytime I hit the shopette and they had the sale, there used to be the juices. They'd be like 5 for $5, right? So you could get 5 like Gatorades for $5. I would always grab as many as I could, and when I go through the gate, I'm like, here you go, guys.
That's
because
awesome.
it's freaking hot out here, you know, and so just making sure that that's caring, right? Like they're defending the gate and it's hot and we got to show that. So we talked about caring externally, right? Kind of outward.
Right.
What do we do for caring for ourselves?
Ooh, yeah, self-care. That's a huge issue. We get so worried about the mission or whatever the case may be that caring for ourselves seems to take the back burner.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we can do. And the role of chaplain here, that's a really big foot stomp from our guys, that we need to make sure that we're caring for each other and caring for ourselves as the chaplains, because we spend so much of our time just trying to pour that love on. Like you said, oh, here's the chaplain, he's gotta like me kind of thing.
Right.
We need to make sure that we're also filling up our reserves to be able to provide that care for others. And we can't do that if we're not sleeping, if we're not eating right, if we're not exercising, if we're not doing just something silly and dumb that we want to do.
Yep. So often, again, we talk about caring for our airmen, right? Putting the younger folks first. And we can do that, but if we're not looking at ourselves and how we're caring for ourselves, proper nutrition, proper sleep, going to the doctors when you need to, right? Telling your leadership when you're having, you know, some concerns or issues, or when you're just not 100%, right? Like, I think I need a half day today. Like, can I put in some leave, or can I take some time? You know, really taking that opportunity to be self-aware when you're down, to care for you, then you'll be able to care for others so much better. But when you're not all there 100%, right, how in the world could you ever try to care for your airmen or for your spouse or for your children when you yourself are, you know, poor nutrition, lack of sleep, right? Like, I know for me, when I don't have sleep, my kids, they know it. And I try to not do that, but there's a little bit of snippiness that can happen, you know, like, get your shoes on, let's go, you know.
That's why coffee is so good.
I know.
No,
right?
no. Proper sleep is good.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about self-care, we definitely want to tune into our feelings, right? And I know we talk about feelings a lot in our world, but other people don't really talk about feelings a whole lot in their world because it doesn't really apply. So take some time, get to know, you know, what you're feeling, get an idea of what needs you are lacking maybe, and definitely in those pillars, the mental, physical, spiritual, social pillars, take time for yourself.
Right, and I think all those things that you've talked about and listed, be mindful of your triggers. So you know yourself, and so if there's some triggers that you know, when I start not getting enough sleep, if I'll start to act like you had said, a little snippy, or if I've been doing this too long, I'll start to get complacent and I'll miss some things. So look for these triggers that show you that maybe you don't think you are, but these triggers will show you that you do need to take some time for yourself. And also, when it comes to those triggers as well, there are certain things that will keep you from caring for yourself. So if you're constantly thinking and worrying about someone else, those are some things that you need to take in consideration too. Definitely.
I think that when you're in a relationship with someone and you care, it's so easy to just fall into the trap of like providing that care outside, right? Like their care, their needs. And then sometimes it's opposite. You know, sometimes we get in relationships and it's like my needs. And so when we think about caring specifically, there has to be some type of middle ground, right? Some healthy boundaries, right? And some maybe just genuine, I'm lacking the word of just like where both sides participate, right? Like,
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and I do this a lot when I do go through marriage counseling. So when we get together, it's one of the things that I talk about is we need to have a checkup. So there needs to be a checkup every once in a while. I don't care how strong you think your relationship is, maybe the best relationship in the world, but there needs to be a time in which you take a checkup, a pulse, you know, take a, I'm with you, I'm missing that word.
yeah.
But getting a pulse on your relationship and saying, okay, let's see how we're doing. Let's just sit down and talk about, are my needs being met? Are your needs being met? And if so, great.
Yeah.
Is there ways that we can do better? If not, then where are we lacking? And then just get on the same page.
Definitely. And I think to do that, it requires a lot of listening.
Yeah, that's
right?
huge.
I think part of caring is just that simple component of letting the other person know, I hear you. I'm not building up my defense, so when you stop talking, right, I can plow through. Or I'm not, you know, just belittling what you're saying or trying to minimize what you're saying, but I want to hear you. And I think that's huge.
No, it absolutely is. And also that goes on the other side too, where if you're the one that someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm worried about you. And you go, stop worrying about me, you should worry about yourself.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, that defense that shoots up automatically. I'll learn to be cared for.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing. And I know, speaking of me, I'm the worst at receiving gifts and things like that, including, you know, words of affirmation. I'm like, hey, let's talk about something else.
Yep.
I'll change the subject quick, best I can. And that's something I personally need to work on, but we need to be able to accept that care. I know it's hard for us.
It is difficult. That caregiver role, we're always so focused on outside, right, support, that when it gets turned on us, it's such an alien, foreign feeling, right? And you're just like, it's like this like kind of verbal hug, right? Like, I care about you, and you're just like, okay, you know, thanks, you know.
Absolutely.
But yet we want to do it for other folks. It's such an interesting dynamic of the give and take that has to go. Well, this has been The Pillars, the podcast of the 363rd, and we want to thank you for listening. Again, we were hitting the third topic on our healthy relationships, and we're talking about caring. So please go out and care.
Give them a hug.
Give them a hug. I'm Sergeant Joe.
And I'm Chaplain David.
And you have a great day.